Believe in yourself. You are great. You are important. You are successful. You can do it.
Nick, what are you doing?
Just got to get my mind right for my entrepreneurial journey here.
Get your mindset.
Start with my affirmations.
Right. That's right. What was that skit on Saturday Night Live? Gosh darn it, people like me.
Yeah. It's like, I'm smart, I'm funny, and gosh darn it, people like me. That's what I do, man. It's how I get it right. Let's go. All right, I did it. I'm done in front of the mirror. I've said all the nice things about myself. I think I'm pretty, and I think I'm smart, and I'm ready to start a business. Is that what we're doing today?
We are. We're starting 3 different machine shops right after we hit end on this.
Nice. No, I am excited, guys. The Machine Shop MBA has been kind of visioneered by us for a while, and we're into it. And MakingChips has a little bit more structure and focus to like the story we're telling over the next 20 something episodes until we're to the end of it. First one, we had way too much fun with a couple accountants. The first two, I guess.
Stop. That comes after.
You're going backwards. Yeah.
Oh, this is before that.
This is before that.
Oh, shoot. All right. Good. I was going to say this should be.
And we need to reference Modern Machine Shop.
We need this one. This one we're going to open up talking about last time we talked about how to become a top shop.
With Brent. Yeah.
Okay. So instead of me saying that, why don't you guys say that? Because I'm still not even sure what the order is.
In our first episode of this series, we had Brent Donaldson from Modern Machine Shop magazine talking about becoming a top shop. So, in this episode, we're talking about the mindset of an entrepreneur and what it takes to start a business, which is really hard, right? People, I think, often oversimplify. Maybe they're working at a shop. They're like, my boss is an ass. I can do this better. I want to see the financial upside. I'm just going to buy some machines, stick them in a garage, and get going.
Yeah, I had like 16 Red Bulls, and I watched a ton of YouTube videos of like all these guys with standing in front of their Lamborghini being like, all I did is read a ton of books and look. You've seen those videos too. I know you know what I'm talking.
Oh, for sure.
Those idiots out there just like pre-crushing people's dreams. It's just terrible.
But there is a lot to it. We will get into those with future episodes. But, this series is really going to be, as we've called it, a Machine Shop MBA, right? We're doing it alongside with Modern Machine Shop as a partner in this. Ultimately, we're going to wrap it up at the Top Shops Conference in November of this year. It's going to be super fun at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. And we're going to learn from a lot of different, shop leaders and owners and experts in every aspect of the business. But before you can start one, you got to know why you want to do it. I think there's so much importance to having the vision of what you want to build, because if you don't have a great vision, people aren't going to join you on it or not stick with you through it. And it's going to be very hard at times. I always say this is one of the hardest businesses in the world, not the hardest. So you got to.
Yeah, if you want to start an easy business, don't do this. Don't make a machine shop.
Do not.
And if all you get out of this episode is like, I probably shouldn't start a business, then that's great. Nothing wrong with you. This is not for everybody. There's plenty of people who don't start a business, have great lives and a lot of success. So yeah, sometimes it feels like
we'll try not to pre-crush your dreams.
Yeah, exactly. Because you probably won't get a Lamborghini just by reading a lot of books and like shipping Amazon boxes or whatever. So, Mike, carry us into it, man.
Yeah, it definitely takes a mindset, right? So there's, I remember when colleges started offering a degree in entrepreneurship, and I thought, well, yeah, I've been around entrepreneurs my entire career. I don't know how you teach that necessarily. Now, I think, a lot of colleges have transitioned that to being a very broad-based business degree, and it's great. But, sometimes entrepreneurs you got to have a little bit different take on things. And I think Paul nailed it, is you've got to have that vision and that passion for what you're doing. Because it is hard. Even if your company's super successful, it's still hard.
Yeah. And I think you have to, one of the things I want to convey for those that haven't done it, you got to be okay with being in hard situations, not having uncertainty looming over your head all the time. I know like my uncle, worked in the State Department for years, and he just could not even remotely imagine starting a business. He's like, that is not in my DNA. I just want a paycheck. I want it to be solid as the government, right?
Right.
Any uncertainty about my life is not something I'm going to sign up for. But so an entrepreneur, it's all about that, right? We know 90 plus whatever percent of businesses fail. So you got to go in knowing the odds are stacked against you. And then hopefully what we're going to deliver in the rest of this program over the series is, a bunch of actionable tools and tactics to make sure you can beat those odds and be in that 5 or 10% that do make it.
Well, and I think when we talk about this series too, and you talk about a vision, I mean, our vision for this series was really the fact that we understand that a large percentage of the people in this industry have a dream of starting their own shop someday, right? I mean, whatever that exact number is, who knows, 60%, 75%. I know in my experience when I bought Hill, just through my conversations with people, I would say that those are real numbers. And it's funny now, fast forward coming up on 8 years, some of them, now that they've gotten a little bit, maybe a behind the scenes look, and maybe just through my transparency with my team and so forth, some of them are like, I had zero desire to start my own shop. Like, it's so much harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I think the true entrepreneurs are going to hear those stats, those real stats that only 1 out of 10 make it or less. And they're just going to be like, well, I'm doing it anyway.
Right, sure.
And I think when you really meet someone who's got that entrepreneurial gene, they're just like, well, I'm doing it anyway. Here's why I'm not going to fail. Or here's what I'm going to do to make sure I don't fail. Some of those same people fail. And then they try again. And then maybe the next one doesn't fail. Or maybe they fail 5 times in a row and then they just quit.
Yeah.
They didn't have this series to...
There you go, Paul. I was teeing you up for that because they didn't listen to the Machine Shop MBA.
That's right.
So let's jump into it. And I think we have some references, right, Mike? Some people who kind of give us some clips and some thoughts on that mindset.
Yeah, I think maybe the best way to do some of this is just hear from, some entrepreneurs I think I will know the name of. This audience will all know for sure. But yeah, this first clip is Titan Gilroy. And, let's listen to that.
What kind of mindset do you have to go into those types of jobs? And confidence comes from knowledge and putting the work in. People say like, well, you got to have, what, right? But you need to have confidence based on knowledge, based on skill, based on repetition, and
based
all
on
of
experience.
It, based on experience, and then have a mental attitude, a mindset to always push the limits, to always think that there's a better way and never settle. And it's like in life, right? When you think that you've already, everything, that's when you cease to live.
Exactly, yeah.
So we always got to be pushing that level. Life is levels. The trade is levels, your marriage, everything is all about rising through the levels and stuff.
Clearly, he was one of those people who was like, I'm going to do this anyway. I mean, there was so many things that happened in Titan's life where a lot of people wouldn't have had that resilience, a lot of that persistence. They would have just been like, look, I got to stop here. I gave it my shot and this is too much. He's a boxer, right? So always came back for that next round. And you see that throughout his life. And I think the other thing that you mentioned, Paul, was a clear vision. Titan is a good friend of ours. And he's one of those guys where once he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it, and it's just hey, who's on for the ride?
Yeah. And he's great at rallying people to get on the team and, row the boat in the same direction to achieve that dream.
And I think that's true of his actual team, the employees of Titans of CNC, because Mike and I were just there the other day, and the culture that you see is not fabricated. They are like that all the time. It's not just when the cameras are on, but rallying the entire community. And 450,000 something students registered learning under his curriculum. And it all started with that vision and that persistence and that grit. So without that, just forget about being an entrepreneur.
I don't know that I've come across very many, entrepreneurs and business leaders that can really articulate their passion as well as Titan does, right? it's such a critical piece of starting any business. But it, and as Paul points out, that this is a tough one, right? There are easier businesses out there to do if you just want to own your own company.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get into this business, I mean, you've got to be tough. There will always be something to overcome, even when things are going perfect. There's going to be that oddball scrap, or there's going to be, something. I mean, we had a windstorm the other day, and our power is going in and out, and we have to pull off jobs that are, that have a threading cycle, right? I mean, there's just always something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, you got to have a grit as an entrepreneur that just, it doesn't exist in everybody. And in some, it's unstoppable. There might be a few people listening to this that are upset with me when I say this, because I've done this to them. But, throughout my career, I've worked with a lot of people that want to start companies. And for probably the first 6 months that I talk to them and work with them, I make them meet me for breakfast at 6 a.m.
Right.
Because if they can't do that,
Yeah.
then they can't do this.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you got to, they don't want to get up at 6, or get up even earlier to meet me for breakfast at 6. But I mean, that is a simple little thing to see if I even just really want to waste my time trying to help them.
Paul actually told me a story about how he one-ups you. He makes them meet at 4 a.m. and run
at the gym.
a half marathon. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And only a few people have survived that. So.
Right. I don't coach many people for that. Yeah. But the ones I do are the most elite.
Yeah, David Goggins, ever heard of him?
Yeah, and then we cold plunge together. Got to stay under the ice for at least half an hour.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not dragged out by your partner, completely unconscious, then you haven't really unleashed the grit.
That's right.
Well, all joking aside, I can remember periods in our, not even early days of our shop, where there was enough things going wrong, or we had majorly screwed something up, that I was just like, this is it. This is the end of the business. Like, we're just like, there's nothing there's no eventual outcome other than we're shutting our doors, right? It's just the worst ever. Interestingly enough, I couldn't tell you a single episode of those where I can remember the actual problem. I just remember the feeling in my gut, like, we're never going to survive this.
Wow.
But it definitely, maybe it's because I have a bad memory, but, or at least up here, I have that emotional memory in my gut. But maybe I have, more grit than some, but, show up the next day and figure it out, right? And be creative, be flexible, be resourceful. But yeah, it's not everyone has it, but those are all attributes and qualities that, certainly Titan exemplifies. And I think in some of the other clips we're about to play as well.
Yeah. And I think, Paul, I mean, you're probably not going to disagree with what I'm about to say, but like, if it was just you, it would have been harder to pull yourself out of some of those, but you had a really, really solid team, like a brotherhood with Kelsey and the other founding members. And that is what a lot of people need. Grit can't always just be manufactured by an individual. Sometimes you need people to help you out of those. If you have times where you're really doubting, like, should I continue, or should we continue, or is this the end? Sometimes you need someone else to be like strong in that moment where you're really weak.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, and I've had a very, very, I'll call it, lucky and blessed entrepreneurial journey, having business partners that are close friends for 30 plus years now, and never fell into the pitfalls that many partners do, where they end up falling apart. But the other important quality that I think is crucial in an entrepreneur is, even if you have that support network or partners that can help spread the load off your shoulders, there will be still times where you collectively don't have the answers.
Mm-hmm.
And realizing that that's the case, having enough humility to say, we don't know what to do next here, we don't know the right answer, and finding that help is absolutely critical. It'd be interesting to know, of a study of those businesses that did survive, the 5 or 10%. Did they find resources? Did they find mentors, peer groups, coaches? back in the day, I've mentioned this many times, after 9/11, we almost went out of business. Like, we were weeks away from insolvency, and we found, a business advisor through the SBA program, the Small Business Development Center in our local town here. And we would have gone out of business if we hadn't reached out and connected with them.
Yeah.
So that humility, and I think it's especially pervasive with men. They're like, I got to know all the answers. I'm a type A person. I'm good at everything.
Even more so in manufacturing. Like, I can do this. I can make any part. I can solve any problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because you can, figure out how to machine any part does not mean you can figure out how to survive every business hurdle that gets thrown your way.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a really important thing going. Again, as you're starting this journey, like, what is that circle I'm going to have around me? Maybe you are going to have a partner.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're going to have, maybe you've got a mentor, a family member, somebody that's. It doesn't even have to be the same business if they've been through business, right? A lot of the things that I know, that same gut feeling you've had, Paul, right? Like, oh my God, this is it. And a lot of times those things that create that gut feeling are true across all industries.
Oh,
right?
Sure. Of course.
It's not specific to machining. I mean, maybe a bad scrap or something caused this financial situation or whatever, but those things you have to work yourself out of happen in all industries. So yeah, being, having either friends or family that have been in business in your circle, a partner, a coaching group, I know here locally, and they have a great national footprint too. SCORE.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I can't remember exactly what it stands for.
Society of Retired Executives.
Yeah, something of retired executives. These are people that, I mean, it's a nonprofit organization that wants to help entrepreneurs, right? So whether that's a business plan or, like in the next episode, we're going to talk about forming your, how to form a company. A lot of get a lot of resources out of them. So, having those things around you, or even just look at it like all the, this series, right? Like, draw on some of this, draw on the other podcasts and resources that are out there that can help you learn and help you get through some of these difficult situations.
I think the probably most applicable example of all of this is MakingChips. I mean, the audience knows, like, we had different founders than what we have today, and we have different partners. Oh shoot, did we lose you, Mike?
I think I'm here.
It says El Gato, no signal, which is Spanish for Mike is not here.
It's exact literal translation.
So I'll bring that up, and then we can move into the next clip.
Did your camera go to sleep? Oh, there we are.
Now Mike's a ghost.
It's been on for too long.
Yeah.
Now my battery's dead.
That's hilarious. What's wrong with just a freaking computer and a webcam, guys?
Yeah. Why is my camera dead?
I'm glad all my stuff is plugged in with hardwire on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So probably the best example of, like, everything we just talked about is MakingChips itself. It's not the best example in the world, but it's the best example for this moment. Because without Mike and Paul, you guys, we had the, Jim departing and kind of retiring from this podcast, and then Jason's massive accident. And I needed that, like, support system and those partners. And Matthew Nick, shout out to him. He helped with, keep things going when it was really hard. There were times where part of me was like, this is not my real job. This is not my main job. I love MakingChips, but this is just so hard to keep going by myself. And I didn't have to keep it going by myself because of you guys. And now look where we are today. I think we're going to have 10 shows under the umbrella pretty soon here. And we've got 2 incredible partners. And I really appreciate you guys just kind of reinforcing that we should do this. We can do this. We're here to help. And overall, the purpose of MakingChips is beyond, me or any of the hosts. It's for this whole community. So thank you guys.
Well, it's good that we have 2 incredible partners. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes.
I wish I could be there with you.
Yeah. Mike's here. It's just, camera problems, but that buttery voice is still here to soothe me when times get tough.
That's right. That's what you needed. Great voice.
Well, yeah, and it's just the purpose, like your business needs a purpose that's beyond you. And I think, maybe some people go into business just for their own gains, and some of those businesses probably work out. But when you have a purpose that's beyond you, you kind of feel like, hey, there's more people here that this business is for. There's more stakeholders here, and I don't want to let them down. And the community of manufacturing leaders that's benefited from making chips for so long is part of like, yeah, let's keep this going. Let's see where we can take it. And yeah, we're taking it to brand new heights now. So very excited about that. Let's move into the next clip. There's somebody who has a purpose to get humans off this planet and see how we can do outside of Earth, which is talk about a big, hairy, audacious goal. Let's play the clip from Elon Musk.
A lot of times people think creating companies going to be fun. I would say it's not. It's really not that fun. I mean, there are periods of fun and there are periods of where it's just awful. And particularly if you're the CEO of the company, you actually have a distillation of all the worst problems in the company. There's no point in spending your time on things that are going right. So you only spend your time on things that are going wrong. And there are things that are going wrong that other people can't take care of. So you have the worst. You have a filter for the crappiest problem in the company. The most pernicious and painful problem. So I wouldn't say it's, I think you have to feel quite compelled to do it and have a fairly high pain threshold. And there's a friend of mine who says starting a company is like staring into the abyss and eating glass. And there's some truth to that. The staring into the abyss part is that you're going to be constantly facing the extermination of the company. Because most startups fail, like 90%, arguably 99% of startups fail. That's the staring into the abyss part. You're constantly saying, okay, if I don't get this right, the company will die. Quite stressful. And then the eating glass part is, so you're going to work on the problems that the company needs you to work on, not the problems you want to work on. And so that's you end up working on that you'd really wish you weren't working on. And so that's the eating glass part. And that goes on for a long time.
Yeah. So, what did you just hear from Elon there? It's, it's hard. He referred to it as chewing on glass, right?
And staring into the abyss.
Yeah. And, but I think that clip did a really good job of just capturing the fact that, I guess it reinforces that grit, right? Like you've got to have that in you to be able to tackle the problems and how you address, as you grow your company, your job is going to become to solve the hardest problems your company's facing. So that might be something inside your facility. It might be something bigger. Paul's mentioned before, starting a machine shop in aerospace, and a few years later, 9/11 happens.
Yep.
Within 2 years of me buying a machine shop, I had a 60% decrease in revenue from COVID, the pandemic. There's that all of a sudden I had a new problem to solve. Right. It didn't have anything to do with, am I using the right tools and do I have a good cycle time and is this machine maintained well? Right. And that's your job now as the owner. And it does sometimes feel like you're chewing on glass.
One thing that I certainly experience and I've heard from others is that the buck truly stops with you. When you are the founder, the owner, there is no other place that you just, to come in and save the day or come up with a solution or the problem, it's like it truly comes with you. Like if you're not going to make payroll next week, you got to figure out what to do, right? If you don't have enough work coming in the door, you need to figure it out. If you have a customer that's furious because you scrapped all their parts, you need to figure out the way to get through that. And not everyone's up for that. But, that is I think sometimes it's a wake-up call for folks when they used to work for other people and then they now work for themselves and they think about all the, being their own boss and having free time and earning, all the profits. And along with that comes the ultimate, you being the ultimate decision maker. And if you don't know what to do, that's where you need to figure it out, find the resources, reach out, dig deeper, get creative.
The ultimate buck stopper.
The ultimate buck stopper.
And you've got to be ready for things like, you're the last one that gets paid, right? I mean, like Paul mentioned, am
Oh,
I
yeah.
going to make payroll next week? I mean, you may not be in it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll raise my
Right?
hand.
I mean, I've done that.
Absolutely.
Or I can tell you stories of the opposite of that, where, like there's one classic example of somebody that I did help get into business and just ultimately did not have that entrepreneurial mindset where, like, he was going to get paid first. He saw owning a business as a lake house and great vacations, not the sleepless nights
Mhm.
and not making payroll. And maybe I've got to stay here all night tonight to get these parts done or whatever that is. And he failed in 14 months because, your people aren't going to be behind you if you're the first one paid, right?
Mhm.
Oh, no.
If you're not taking care of them. And,
For sure.
it's hard. And I think, again, the reason this clip is in here is, it's not all, we don't want to portray the image that this is easy. It's hard. It's scary. Sometimes, you hear people talk about, being the owner is the loneliest spot in the company. And I hear people have very valid arguments against that too. But, I mean, there's not a lot of people to talk to. There are some things you cannot just talk about with everybody. And, maybe even sometimes your spouse or your, whatever that is, because you're trying to manage everybody, keep everybody on board with what you're trying to do. Right. So
Mhm.
sometimes you can't say, hey, like, this is how tight we're running.
Yeah, like I'm terrified and I haven't slept in a long time because I'm not sure about this business. You say that to your employees, they're like, yeah, maybe I should go work at that other shop where my job's more secure. So yeah, some of this, I mean, make sure you're taking care of your mental health, but like, don't make your team your therapist because it doesn't always give the best,
Right.
it doesn't always send the right message, but also you need to be human and authentic and
Sure.
be real about problems. I think a good percentage of this episode, we're going to tell people why they shouldn't be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because like I said earlier, I think the real entrepreneurs are just going to do it anyway. But if you're risk averse, don't be an entrepreneur. Like if I know there's people who, like, for example, don't want to go into sales because they just want that consistent paycheck every 2 weeks. I don't want any variable element to my compensation. And that's fine. Like the world needs accountants too. We're going to have a couple smart ones on the next episode. And, risk averse, don't be an entrepreneur. Probably not a good fit for you. Or the second one is if you want to be like doing the same type of thing and you don't want to be really well-rounded and you want to just be like, okay, I hate sales. I don't want sales to be a part of my job, or I hate getting into the shop. I don't want to deal with internal operations anymore, or I don't want to deal with the financial side of business because I'm not a finance person. Like Paul just said, the buck stops with you. You have to solve the biggest problems in the business. That problem often bounces from one function to the other. And if you have no interest in digging in or understanding it, you probably shouldn't be an entrepreneur unless you have a partner or partners. And it's very clear that there's going to be people for each of those.
Well, and that brings up a great point. I mean, we're talking about these risks and being risk adverse and those types of things, but you can also, I mean, you can build your organization around those things, right? So
Right.
if you're not good at sales, guess what some of your first employees need to be in sales. If you're not good at finance, get a good CPA. If you're, I come in from the other side in this industry where, like, the office side that's natural to me. I'm not I don't know how to machine anything, right? So what do I need? I need the support on the floor, right? So you can build that infrastructure around you, whether it's full-time employees or coaches or partners or mentors or, other employees, whatever that might be. But you need to be realistic about them at this stage as you're thinking about it, of where do I need help? And then how do I build that network around me?
Yeah. You don't have to be strong in every area, but you can't be disengaged or disinterested in
You can't
every
not
area.
care.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the third clip here from the late, great Steve Jobs.
How do you learn to run a company?
Throughout the years in business,
I found something, which was I'd always ask why you do things. And the answers you invariably get are, oh, that's just the way it's done. Nobody knows why they do what they do. Nobody thinks about things very deeply in business. That's what I found. I'll give you an example. When we were building our Apple Ones in the garage, we knew exactly what they cost. When we got into a factory in the Apple II days, the accounting had this notion of a standard cost, where you'd kind of set a standard cost and then at the end of a quarter, you'd adjust it with a variance. And I kept asking, well, why do we do this? And the answer was, well, that's just the way it's done. And after about 6 months of digging into this, what I realized was the reason you do it is because you don't really have good enough controls to know how much it costs. So you guess, and then you fix your guess at the end of the quarter. And the reason you don't know how much it costs is because your information systems aren't good enough. But nobody said it that way. And so later on, when we designed this automated factory for Macintosh, we were able to get rid of a lot of these antiquated concepts and know exactly what something cost to the second. So in business, a lot of things are, I call it folklore. They're done because they were done yesterday and the day before. And so what that means is if you're willing to sort of ask a lot of questions and think about things and work really hard, you can learn business pretty fast. It's not the hardest thing in the world.
Okay, so there you got Steve Jobs just talking about, that mindset of this is how we've always done things versus as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, like why do we do it that way and why can't we do better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, that's a big part of my job when you talk about, you hear everybody talk about don't work in the business, work on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that to me is asking that why do we do things this certain way that maybe aren't giving me the results I want, and then figuring out a way to do it better. And I think that's what he was capturing there.
Sure. And he obviously was a visionary thinker, which, not specifically called out in the video, but the other great thing about Steve Jobs is he absolutely could build a really compelling vision and recruit people to come help him make it happen.
Sure.
Just so gifted.
Probably the best ever at it, really.
Really so gifted at that. And that's, with so many of the guests that I've had on Machine Shop Mastery, I didn't originally plan this, but it was surprising as we kind of got into the episodes and more guests, was that I think there's a causality with owners that can set a vision, can, set a mission, vision statement, develop their values, and then recruit people to come do that with them that are really excited to show up every day and push hard and go through the hard things together.
Mm-hmm.
And without that compelling vision, it's hard to get people excited about joining and, joining you long-term to that successful outcome.
Which is a great point back to Nick's earlier point in this of like, you've got to have that purpose, right? What's the purpose? What's the why? And if you develop that and you answer all those things for yourself, like it's a whole lot easier to sell that message to your team and that circle that you've created, where they will get behind you and they will help drive that mission forward.
Yeah. Steve Jobs was all about differentiation, being different and challenging the status quo. And, if your purpose is to be exactly like another business, it's less compelling and you're not going to find anybody else or as many people excited to join that journey with you. But when you want to challenge the status quo, like you were saying, why do we do it this way? Why is it done this way? Sometimes that's an internal challenge of the status quo. Like, why do we do things this way within this business? And other times it's like, why is it done that way? I mean, we talked about Titan, as far as machining education. Why is it done this way? Let's build something completely new that the world's never seen before. And look how many people got behind that vision. So it is, I love to say sometimes different is always better than better. It's don't just try to be a better version of that Acme tool and die down the street, Acme tool and die plus, it's like be somebody different than all the other shops that are around you and have like when people walk in the first 10 minutes of knowing you, they should feel like, wow, like they're really doing things differently here.
Well, and think about, to that point, think about the 3 clips we just listened to. So you got Titan, you got Elon, you got Steve Jobs. one thing I would say they all have in common is they're incredibly disruptive, right? So they all have taken an approach of being incredibly disruptive to their industries, whether it's in Titan's approach to education, Elon, whether you're talking about Tesla or SpaceX or even back to PayPal, everything he did, he came in, he's looking at things from a totally different perspective. Steve Jobs, by all means, was one of the most disruptive, probably, entrepreneurs that we'll ever experience. Whether it was computing or mobile computings and then phones and all those types of things. And it's because they saw a vision. They saw a different way of doing things. They asked why. And then they drove for it. And I think that entrepreneurial mindset, I mean, we're not talking about, in this series, we're not talking about how to build a company to go to Mars, but you still have to understand your business and how your industry operates and maybe how you can do it better. Right? What do you bring different to the market?
Yeah.
And not everyone is born with this, vision of being no one is born with a vision of being an entrepreneur and having that mindset. So, but there's things you can teach yourself, right?
My first word, Paul, was startup. Right before mama.
Parents must have been so proud of you. So yeah, just calling out a few things that you can go learn to do, and that are just critical for the mindset of an entrepreneur, right? There's the mindset of continuous learning and continuous improvement. I can't imagine being successful without that. Even just figuring out problem solving that you've never had come across before. And of course, then mental toughness is a big one. You need to be that David Goggins, go run 120 miles at 120 degrees through the desert, So if you don't do that, don't start a machine shop.
Yeah. Exactly.
And, develop those long-term goals, that vision of where your company wants to be in the future. Again, that's critical for recruiting people to come do it with you, because what's the saying? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. Right? So, people won't join you unless you have that vision and those goals that they can get excited about helping you with. And then, as we've talked about many times, get help when you need it. You can learn some of these skills by reading. Oftentimes you can't, and you need to reach out to a network, to people, and help them make you through those tough spots.
And we're doing the best we can with this Machine Shop MBA series to equip you if you're starting your business, or if you already run a business, to grow and be more successful. But there's things that you're going to run into that we did not cover. You can reach out to any of us individually and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I think by now, we all, Mike, Paul, Nick, we all have different areas of expertise. So just find one or all of us and say, hey, can you help me through this? And we will reply to you and point you in the right direction. If not, just pick up the phone and talk you through it ourselves. But yeah, just the next 20 something episodes will be all towards how to run a machine shop. And we're excited to get them kicked off here and start really working through these.
Absolutely.
Nick, that's a great summary. And I guess kind of jokingly, but not so much, earlier said, a lot of this episode is going to be talking you out of being an entrepreneur. And it's, certainly not our goal is that we're not trying to talk anybody out of it, but we're just trying to be real and authentic, that it's hard. And, like the Titan clip, you can do it. It's totally possible, but it is hard. And you do need to think a little bit differently, and you need to build that team around you. As you indicated, and first, let's go back to the episode before too. I mean, one of the things you can do to really help you change that mindset is off of that Top Shop survey. I mean, hopefully by now you've listened to that episode, you've done the survey. Here in a little while, you're going to get a response of how you stack up, and, take all those tools that are available. Right? I mean, here's a free tool from Top Shop. And if you are starting up versus buying whatever, or you're already in business, you can still get a copy of that Top Shop survey and just see, what do shops do? What's different about, the top shops and quote everybody else. And,
that's part of getting that help, is benchmarking.
Absolutely.
You can study all day, but if you know a community of people who have been there and done that and what makes them a top shop, that's much more helpful.
Yeah. So, play off of that and help that to drive you to be better. Get that circle of people around you that can help you be better. reach out to us. We're happy to help. Next time we're gonna really start talking about like kind of laying that foundation of a company, where we're really gonna get down even into just, should I be an LLC or an S corp or a C corp, and then how do I do it? So we really want, this whole series is going to be built around that kind of step-by-step process from, this first few episodes might be kind of focused on, do I want to start a shop, buy a shop? How do I form it? Those types of things. But we're, as we continue this, I think all of this will have relevance too, if you're already in business and you're ready to go to the next level. So yeah, I mean, from this time, connect with us. Make sure you stay on top of this series, because we really want to bring value. If there's things you want to hear about, like, let us know for sure, and we can add those in.
And I want to make sure to end with, we've talked about how hard things are and maybe a little bit of doom and gloom, and but I think the important note is just go into it eyes wide open. Don't fool yourself into thinking it's going to be a cakewalk. But on the other side of the hard work, not that it ever ends, is just incredible reward.
Most rewarding thing you can do professionally.
Absolutely. I mean, so many of my guests say they absolutely love their jobs, love their businesses, can't imagine doing anything else. And it's so crucial for our country to have a strong manufacturing economy. So yeah, it's good stuff. And it can also be very financially rewarding as well.
Yeah,
I can tell you, owning my own business, I've never had like a, quote, case of the Mondays, right? Like I mean, I love it. It's the most rewarding thing I've ever done.
Yeah. Well, hey, guys, thank you for being that circle around me, and just what we have here is so fun. We enjoy this little business that we have with Making Chips, and without you guys, I would have a lot more cases of the Mondays. I rarely have those. I pretty much love what I do every day. So thank you for that. If you love what you do, you can make a lot of chips. And if you're not making chips,
you're not making money.
Bam.